Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's up? It's Tolly from Atlanta. It is the Pregame Network. And once again, it's time to get together and two old guys to have a conversation. It is the Tolly and Neely show coming to you on Neely, what's today? Thursday? Yeah, we do this every Thursday. Shout out to Jackson, Mississippi. Shout out to Goonsville. Shout out to my man, Uncle Neely. What's going on, Unc?
Man, got no complaints on this end. I like how you started off with two old guys. Once upon a time, you would try to keep yourself out of that, Now I see you have embraced it.
I remember Neely early in my broadcast career. I was 20 something, man. I used to pick on all the old guys, and you live long enough, man, and you turn into one of them.
The damn show beats the alternative.
It does. It does. It's that time of the year, Neely, where there's news in the headlines. Not a lot of things happening on the field, college football-wise, but still a lot of things to talk about. But before we get into that, Neely, I just want to give everybody a little tease. We'll get into it later in the show. I'm halfway a man of my word. Neely, I didn't quite make the crackling cornbread, but I did show up with Max Crackling today. So I'm halfway there. I got a Fresca and some crackling. So depending on how the show goes, we might just go to the concession stand a little early here today.
I got no words. He showed up with crackling. I guess next week I'll bring some hog head cheese, aka sauce.
I don't know about that. So this all goes back to I don't even remember how we got on the conversation, but a couple of weeks ago we were talking about just different variety of foods, and somebody in the comments, shout out to everybody in the comments, brought up crackling cornbread, and I had never had it, and I promised to make some for myself and eat it on the air, but life be life, man. I don't always have time to just sit around and make crackling cornbread. But I did pick up some of Max. Man, it's not too bad. The fat content's not too bad. The cholesterol is not too bad. Got a little protein in it.
Compared to what? Not too bad compared to 100%. Like what are you talking about?
Well, by the
it's fried pig fat. How can it be not too bad?
All things considered. Hey, by the time is it Robert Kennedy? By the time he tells us what's good for us, man, this might be like the equivalent of brown rice. Who knows?
It might take 4 years for him to tell us what's going on. So.
Hey, sports and politics, you are in the right place. Neely, let's talk a little bit. Coach Prime has his show on Tubi, along with Ross from 106 in Park.
Roxy.
I was about to say it's spelled with an S, and I wanted to make sure I say it right. Roxy. You all remember Roxy, right? So good show. Had on Troy Aikman recently, and they talked about the Cowboys' job and what woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybe. Troy Aikman was all for it. Coach Prime, though, Neely circled back and reiterated what he has said in the past. He doesn't think he could coach guys professionally based upon, or not that he couldn't, that he doesn't want to, based upon the way he practiced, things that were part of his integrity as a player. He and Troy Aikman talked about that. Troy Aikman said, look, I don't want any balls dropped in practice. Deion Sanders said, look, we were fighting for every catch. Emmitt Smith will hit the hole 20 to 30 yards each run after the whistle. And that might not be the case today. Your thoughts, Neely, on Coach Prime and Troy Aikman having that conversation about nothing new, but Coach Prime coming back around to it.
Well, one of the things I told Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Prime, when I first got to know him at Jackson State, and I could see some frustration building as he would watch practice and watch walkthroughs, and I would say, hey, man, I know you don't cuss, but you going to cuss if you keep expecting you from other people. Everybody doesn't want a gold jacket. Everybody doesn't want to have that Hall of Fame drive, if you will. And so you see Troy Aikman and Deion Sanders having that conversation, that's one of the things you just take from it, is that they recognize the difficulty in these future generations, future from when they played, that they just don't quote unquote want it to the level that previous guys have wanted it. And a lot of that has to do with the way they fought for contracts to be structured. And a lot of times you're getting so much money up front, whereas when Coach Prime and Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith played, a lot of these deals were backloaded. You had to earn it, to get it. And one of the things that, Coach Prime has always said, even when he talks about not really wanting to coach in the NFL, and it wasn't him that was pursuing the Cowboys, it was the Cowboys expressing interest in him, he still will tell you it'd be pretty damn attractive, or darn as he says it, it'd be pretty darn attractive to have an opportunity to coach his sons, plural, in the NFL, because he certainly wouldn't want to be coaching against them. So we'll just see how the draft shakes out, and we'll see even beyond that in future years if certain people end up on the same team. Who knows?
So it sounds like you're still holding open the opinion that that door is not completely closed. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I'm hearing from you, Neely.
Well, that's what I'm hearing from him. If you listen to what Deion Sanders says, and he has said it time and time again, he would be interested in coaching both of his sons, plural, his quote, that's a direct quote, in the NFL. And so as time goes on and they end up on the same team, this same subject is going to come back up again. And who knows? They could end up on the same team the week of the NFL draft. Surely Shador is going to go in the top 5 picks. Shiloh will be in the later rounds. They could literally end up on the same NFL team this very year. But even if they don't, when free agency kicks in after those rookie contracts, who knows where they play? You could have a situation where Shiloh, Travis, and Shador are on the same team in future years.
All right, Neely, so you've watched the practices. You have filmed a million practices. We've seen Coach Prime say, let's start all over. The energy is not good. We've heard what he has had to say about what he thinks about how NFL players practice today. What would have to give if that scenario opened up? What would give?
People are going to conform. When he tells you that he can't see himself, coaching the NFL because of the way the guys prepare, the way the guys don't practice compared to them. I tell you, when you're in a Deion Sanders organization, there's only one way to do it, and that is his way. And he works well with his assistant coaches and his strength and conditioning staff, to set different parameters, different standards. But once those standards are set, those standards are non-negotiable, and he will start practice over. He's big on body language. He's big on detail. He's big on organization. And that's why you would have the world's most valuable sports franchise, the Dallas Cowboys, entertaining the idea of hiring a Deion Sanders, because he can even add value to the most valuable thing that exists in that market space. A lot of times, when people acquire things, it really doesn't become an asset, becomes a liability on the books. Deion Sanders is an asset wherever he lands, college football or NFL.
All right, shout out to Little Mama G. She says that she had to lay the Crackling and the hog head cheese down before it laid her down. All right, so Little Mama G, I won't eat the whole thing, I promise. He won't eat the whole thing today on the air, but he gonna eat the whole thing. He tried to. Y'all may remember a couple weeks ago, he was blaming his mother-in-law for eating most of it. Don't talk about my mother-in-law. Don't talk about my mother-in-law, Neely. Don't do it. All right, I can't keep looking at this Fresca. I am addicted to Fresca. Neely, Troy Aikman is one of the most trusted.
Just won't even buy Fresca. Is there a Fresca machine? Like what? You don't see Fresca even advertised. How'd you come up with a Fresca fetish?
Let's see how I can say this correctly. Well, Neely, in my neighborhood, they like to put the dogs in seatbelts, right? And,
yeah.
And sometimes they have these little parties, and you go and they have Fresca on the table. They don't have red Kool-Aid or the Food Line version. What's the Dr. Pepper knockoff called? They don't have you know,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Doctor.
Dr. Cola.
Yeah, they don't have Dr. Cola. They have Fresca, and so I tried one, man, and it was actually pretty good. So shout out to the people in my neighborhood. I live in a hood adjacent neighborhood, Neely, hood adjacent. But some people in my neighborhood do put their dogs in seatbelts, and they turn me on the Fresca.
Yeah, you can always tell when you get to the cookout and there's Fagos over there versus name brand stuff. Red Pop, cream soda.
Hey, cream soda's pretty good. I'm a big fan of cream soda. Here's what I was going to say. Troy Aikman is one of the more trusted voices, I think, in the ecosystem of professional football. And Neely, he has always spoke highly of Deion Sanders, and it comes across authentic to me. It doesn't come across as blowing smoke. He says what he means, and Troy Aikman has always seemed to say what he means to me, whether you like it or not. But here in Atlanta, I don't understand Atlanta. I don't understand. Atlanta turns on all of its native sons. They badmouth Cam Newton all the time. I was listening to the radio this week. Deion Sanders was on a list of top coaches in America, and they claimed how overrated he was, just here locally. But can you get a bigger endorsement than Troy Aikman in terms of the Dallas Cowboys? He was like, look, I tell anybody who'd listen, I'd bet my money on him being successful in changing that room and being a guy that people would listen to because, the Cowboys have this big brand, but man, when's the last time a coach has actually, since Jimmy Johnson or since Bill Parcells, has there been a coach that's actually in control that the players listen to? Help me out, Cowboy fan.
Yeah, I would say Jimmy Johnson and partly Bill Parcells. Parcells wasn't given the complete reins like a Jimmy was, but the fun fact here, the first quote unquote celebrity guest, if you will, on the pregame show when we were based in Jackson State was Troy Aikman. And in that interview at Memorial Stadium, he showed up for Coach Prime's first game. I think that was against Edward Waters, February 21st, 2021. And Troy talked about how Deion Sanders has remained relevant well after his playing career, that all of them had Super Bowl rings. Everybody had an MVP or some other kind of individual award, but it has been Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, who has become more famous after football than they all were during football. And it's his ability to remain relevant, to remain in a position where he is, embracing the wave, the vibe, embracing technology. His 14 years on the on the NFL Network just put him in another stratosphere post playing career because people really got to know him, without the helmet on. And then you look going into coaching, the success and attention that he had at Jackson State and now at Colorado. He just continues to remain relevant, and he changes the temperature in the room, as he likes to say. The temperature in the room doesn't change him. So the room is going to adjust to Deion Sanders. And when you look at what a Jimmy Johnson accomplished there, it's kind of the same thing. And so for Troy Aikman to have that kind of trust in Coach Prime, it reminds me of what Jimmy Johnson said about Jerry Jones. He said that if I had my last dollar, no other dollar to my name, I would find Jerry Jones and give it to him because nobody knows how to turn a dollar into two and two into four and four into eight like Jerry Jones did. And this is the same Jerry Jones who was very interested in having a Deion Sanders coach for him.
But I would imagine every NFL general manager out there, if they were serious or owner, has to realize you got to get Shador or you're really not in the conversation because you brought it up a second ago, Neely, like, there's no scenario where he would want to coach against his son, even for a game, would he?
None at all. He has said that. He said that publicly, said it privately, that whereas his attraction to the NFL may be minimal, the only maximum attraction would be to coach his sons, because the one thing he would not want to do is coach against them, is to play against them. That he would just ride off into the sunset of coaching before that happened. So, on one hand, where it takes this perfect storm of events to happen for a Deion Sanders to go to the NFL, it's also one of those storms that can happen even if it doesn't happen this year or next year, it is still on the horizon of possibility. And with the age that Coach Prime is, not even 60 years old, and here you have a Pete Carroll coming back at 75, Coach Prime's got another 20 plus years of coaching in him if he wanted to do that.
How about president? I saw something this week. I don't know if it was AI generated, a bot. Somebody had Stephen A. Smith polling at 2% for president in 2028. Like, let's get Coach Prime in the Oval Office.
Coach Prime wants The Rock to run. He wants Dwayne Johnson to run for president.
Well, couldn't get any worse, could it? I don't know. All right. We don't have any executive orders here today. We don't have any DEI either. Miles is black, I'm black, Neely's black. There's just the no DEI show here today, here on the Pregame Show Network. We got Crackling. Closest thing we got to DEI is my Fresca that
I was about to say that, man. Speaking of DEI, when you go to your neighborhood functions and they have Fresca, you should bring the Crackling.
I might. I'll see how that'll float. See how that'll float in my zip code there, Neely. Let's talk about the people that might be saying, well, let's not hear about this Cowboys NFL stuff. We want to rock it out in Boulder. Do we have any extension news? Any movement on that front?
Still nothing has been signed, which means there's been nothing put in front of him that he wants to sign. And I think at this point, in the game, as I've been talking about with the NFL draft coming, what's the rush now? You might as well see how everything shakes out and make sure, it's what you want and how you want it before this season starts. And even then, you would still have the leverage or patience to get exactly what you want, right in tight before you put your John Hancock down on it. So what's taking place in Colorado, is business as usual. This is the strength and conditioning phase of the year. So they've been turned over to Coach Swayze, and he is breaking them down and building them back up. That way, when you get to March and they're handed over to the football staff for spring practice, that first spring practice will be on March 11th, and then it culminates with the spring game on April 19th in Boulder.
All right, speaking of spring practice, we saw in the last couple of weeks, Nebraska said, we're not even going to have a spring game. We don't want people watching our second string cornerback thinking he could be their first string quarterback. We'll practice, but we're not televising the game. We're not going to have a game. I don't have any problems with it. That's what you want to do. But I thought about to myself, how would Coach Prime handle that? I would think, Neely, he would be absolutely not worried at all about any of that.
Yeah, let me tell you this. I totally understand what Nebraska is saying, right? Because the spring game, from an NCAA standpoint, it is just your 15th practice. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing special about 15 more than it is 13, more than it is 11. They're all practices. And throughout the spring, coaches decide to have open practices or not. Some of those are full contact scrimmages. And so typically you reserve that last practice, as a public showcase, as a way to boost ticket sales. Now that some of them being televised, there's a way to boost revenue. But from a football standpoint, there's nothing about the 15th practice that mandates that it has to be a public showcase of sorts. Having said that, when you're trying to push for season tickets and you're trying to get your fan base excited, what better way to do it than have that final practice open? And having been a fly on the wall as Coach Prime prepares for spring practice in the past, you just don't show everything. You water down the playbook, enough where you can still evaluate the guys as the 15th practice, but not where someone can look at film and know what you're going to be running that last Saturday in August or that first Thursday in September, when week 0 and week 1 take place in college football. Not to mention, Tolly, there's also what Nebraska was alluding to. Once the spring game's in, you have another week of the portal open up. And then when you go through strength and conditioning summer 1 and summer 2, and you got fall camp all of August, you're not even looking at the same team at a spring game that you're going to be looking at in the fall. So I wouldn't be too concerned about somebody getting my plays or my playbook from a spring game, because it's a totally different look for what you're going to be doing 90 days later.
Yeah, for sure. What are you hearing? I know you got boots on the ground. As the business evolves, Neely can be in Jackson a little bit. You get Terrace out there working for conditioning. What's going on here as we get ready for actual practice to start in I don't know, another month or so, as you said, in March? How are things going conditioning wise?
Everything's going good. You know, when you look at the tape and look at the energy, the body language is different. I think this new team, has had not only time together, the returning people, but the new people coming in have had 2 years to look on social media and on documentaries on Amazon, and on the pregame network, and know the vibe and know Deion Sanders' expectation as a coach. And so you're seeing new guys come in with the same swagger that old guys have worked themselves up to. And so I think this team is going to become a team faster than it typically takes. Something that Coach Prime always said, even back to Jackson State, when people were worried about flipping rosters and how that works in the portal. He said this is the same thing the NFL goes through every year. You don't have the same team in the NFL every year. You have a core group of your high contract people, but otherwise than that, the team flips and they come together because of what you go through together. I'm expecting that same cohesion to be built going into this spring game. Strength and conditioning under Coach Swayze, the new strength and conditioning coach who spent decades at Miami building them into championship programs, is going to have a wonderful impact as well. Coach Mo is still there. And so having that synergy between the old strength and conditioning coach and the new one, I think is boding well for the workouts that are taking place.
Hey, big shout out to everybody in the comments hanging out with us. It's the off season on the field, never the off season here at the Pregame Network. So Patrick Williams, LT, someone whose name is I'm Listening. I can appreciate that. Double Blessed Twin Mommy, Little Mama G, 8K, Simply Jen's Kitchen. What you cooking? Simply Jen's Kitchen. Got Patrick Williams, Southside D, Brian Johnson, R.A. Wilson. We're still on the lookout for Mama Tia. Has Mama Tia been in the Super Chat in other
She
shows?
has. She has been. She was on last night, as a matter of fact. We did a couple of live shows on yesterday, and she was attending both of them. She's still dealing with some health stuff and asking for prayers as she goes through that. But Mama Tia is still around and supporting it. She did say she was going to have to take some time off for some recovery, so she may be starting that right now.
All right, so our thoughts are with one of our super fans, Mama Tia. We're thinking about you. If you catch the replay, just want to let you know you are on our hearts and our minds here on the Pregame Network. Neely, some people talking about Brian Johnson in particular, talking about Shiloh being a late round, maybe undrafted free agent. He sees that as a scenario to maybe team up with his brother once again. We like to say, people like to think in the NFL everything is just merit-based, but there are some decisions that might not be a bad business decision. An undrafted free agent sometimes, and I'm not saying Shiloh will be, but if he was, a lot of times really that's better than being a late round pick because you get to pick where you want to go because you have several options.
That's absolutely. The past two sports agencies I worked for as an agent assistant, that's what I used to preach to the guys I was handling when they would get to the 6th and 7th round and their name hadn't been called. Now you're at the point where, okay, don't call my name, because if you call my name now, I don't know the situation or control the situation that I'm going into. But as an undrafted free agent, I get to look at the roster. I get to look at contract situations. I get to look at what provides me the best opportunity to actually make the team. Let me tell you this poorly kept secret, Tolly. When you're drafted first, second, third, even fourth round, they want you to make the team. When you're drafted 5, 6, 7, they hope it works out. They're not going to be mad if it doesn't. So there's really not a big separation other than the guaranteed contracts and the way they're tiered, the way you pick. But as it relates to Shiloh Sanders specifically, trust and believe this young brother is going to be drafted. His name will be called, and it won't be Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft either. The skill set that he brings to the table, his ability that he brings to the table, augmented by his football IQ, anything else that you may see as a flaw in his game, the NFL can fix in his game. And you're not talking about a draft that is just heavy laden with safeties. There's not going to be a safety taken in the first or second round. So when people say that Shiloh Sanders is going to go later on in the draft, that's just not a slight. That's just that the position he plays, he's going to make his bread and butter as a rookie on the special teams and then elevate it up to start and play. But hear me and hear me well. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, in 2025 will have both sons drafted in the NFL draft. And so people can critique and people can point fingers, and you could look at even what the Ball brothers have done under LeVar Ball. It damn worked.
You cannot argue with the results. You cannot do that at all. And I highly anticipate that that will be the case coming up here for the NFL draft. Neely, what are your plans? We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. I know you're going to be busy with that. Your coverage plans for the Pregame Network for the NFL draft. How are you going to attack that?
We'll be there in Boulder. The draft, the spring game is on Easter weekend, April 19th, and the draft, I think, starts on about the 24th. So typically we would all get out of there right after spring game, but we're going to host a draft party right there in Boulder at the event center, for all the hopefuls that are getting drafted from Colorado. And so we'll be there for at least the first 2 rounds in Boulder, covering it there, bringing you some inside stuff that you won't see anywhere else because of the access that we're blessed to have. And I will say that, Travis Hunter is making plans that should he be the first pick in the draft, he is planning on attending there at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Tennessee Titans have the first pick. They have said that they're not going to pass on a once-in-a-lifetime player, hint, Travis Hunter. But once it becomes factual where they've communicated to him that he will indeed be the number 1 pick, he's making plans to be there at the draft, to walk across that stage as number 1. Everyone else will be making plans to do their draft event, a joint event in Boulder, Colorado at the team facility.
All right, let me go back a couple questions ago because you said something that kind of slid by. Neely, how many jobs have you had? You said you worked at a sports agency. You've been in government. Neely, how many things have you done in your life?
I try to do something every day, so take 365 times 353. That's the number of things I've done.
You are a man of many talents, Neely. Many talents.
Oh, it's the same talent. Run your mouth. If you can read and you can talk, you can do anything in America. Learn how to read.
That is proven on a daily basis. That has been proven. You are coming up on Super Bowl coverage. You're still going to be Radio Row with Coach Prime. Have you been stretching? You've been warming up the hand. It's going to be a lot of movement, Neely.
Yeah, been there, done that. Have been with him for many events when he works press events. Radio Row for Coach Prime. He'll arrive there tomorrow on Friday. Shadur should be getting there today for about an hour or 2. And then they're pretty much at least planning to be out of there before the game even starts. So it'll just be a Friday Radio Row for Coach Prime. Coach Sapp has been there, this week working Radio Row, and he is a mainstay ambassador for the league and the NFLPA and the Hall of Fame. So when there are events like the Pro Bowl or the Hall of Fame ceremonies or the Super Bowl, you can count on Warren Sapp to be there just about all week in his duties. And Coach Prime kind of comes in toward the end and works the circuit and then gets up out of there.
This should be a fun year. Not to say that it's never a fun year, but Warren Sapp will have a heartwarming story to share with all the conversations he's had because it was such a great year for him. You could just see the joy. I'm not going to say he lost his spark and then he got his spark back. That's not what I'm saying. But you saw something come out of him where he reconnected with football as a coach this time and not a player. And it was just a beautiful sight all season long.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think he would tell you that as well, that he didn't realize or appreciate the impact that this was going to have on him personally, coaching. And now that he has gotten that bug, he doesn't want to get rid of it. He wants to continue doing this. He loves coaching in Colorado. He loves the impact he's having on the young people, even doing some postgraduate work there at the school. So the sky is the limit for Coach Warren Sapp's coaching future. And that's at Colorado or beyond because everybody is going to be picking up the phone, calling him for his services too.
Neely, a lot has been happening this week. The NBA trade deadline is at 3 o'clock today Eastern. So as we speak, maybe some big trades going on. But the biggest trade this week was Luka Doncic going to the Lakers. When I woke up Sunday morning, I thought it wasn't real. How crazy was that, Neely?
No one saw it coming, including Luka, including AD, including LeBron. But it just goes to tell you, if somebody tired of it, they tired of you. And one man's treasure is another man's trash. You would have thought that the league's leading scorer would be just abruptly traded like that from just a year removed, even after getting this team, to the finals. So I think it's going to be a win-win situation for both teams. But I think at the end of the day, the Lakers got the bigger win because Luka, just being 25 years old, he can be in the LA uniform long after LeBron has retired. Whereas an AD is not going to be a Dallas Maverick for 10 plus years from now. So long range plan, Lakers won that deal, but it's one of those things that worked out for everybody. Just like this Jimmy Butler trade out of the Miami Heat to the Golden State Warriors, it may not have the kind of impact this year with Golden State that's propelling them, way all the way up to number one in the West or something. But the Heat had to get Jimmy Butler out of there, and what a place to land when you can land on a team that has Steph Curry.
And Neely, they were talking about trading KD. KD said, "I don't want to go back to Golden State." It has forced many people to reevaluate who is untouchable. You often talk about this mythical list of, who's untradeable, untouchable. That list got a lot shorter this week.
The only people that are untouchable is people who have in their contract a no trade clause. And even a no trade clause with an agreement can be amended and done away with. So at the end of the day, only the owner of the team ain't untouchable when it comes to the roster. Like, you will be moved up out of there if the situation presents itself to move you up out of there.
Neely, if you were to trade me and Miles from the Pregame network, what would you anticipate in return? What would you accept?
For who is that?
If you were to trade me and Miles from the Pregame network, what would you accept in return for me and Miles?
Oh man, it's amazing you mentioned that, because as we approach this deadline, you already have half of what I require. You got a pack of cracklings there. All I need is a large bag of peanut M&Ms, and I will take that for you and Miles.
I love peanut M&Ms. I also love Crackling. I have an inkling that Luka also loves food of the same variety. So folks, some Crackling and some peanut M&Ms, and I am out of here. And Neely will just do the Neely show on the Pregame network. Miles, I hope you don't feel too bad that Neely would trade us. You could at least throw in some airheads, Neely, make us feel special.
Maybe next year.
Okay. All right. Had a little dramatic pause there. Okay. You were talking about some one of your other shows yesterday. Some internal changes, new position, not necessarily new face. Offensive line there, Colorado.
Yeah, Coach Gunnar White, who has been with Coach Prime since he started head coaching in college football, Jackson State, is now the O-line coach for Colorado, being augmented with some help from Coach George Hageman, who played with Coach Prime at the Cowboys and also played at the Eagles. So a two-headed monster of sorts there. And you'll be interested as the host of HBCU Game Day. Coach Gunnar White may be white, but he is a HBCU graduated from Jackson State University. So there's another JSU alum out there in Colorado.
All right. So, hey, JSU continues to roll on. Pretty good signing day for your Tigers. Got a lot of FBS talent there on that roster, the defending Super Bowl champion. So where Coach Prime came from, where he is now, both programs continuing to win. So that makes Neely a happy man.
Yeah, nothing like winning. Winning solves all problems. All the chit chat and the BS goes away when you're winning. And so to have Jackson State, not only win the SWAC championship, but get over that hump and get a Celebration Bowl victory was big for the program, big for TC Taylor. Now all eyes are on repeating, man, and hoping they do well with that.
All right, Neely, it is Black History Month. I thought we might have a conversation about who is your favorite person when you think about Black history, living or alive. Living or alive is the same thing. Living or dead. Let's make that line in the sand. Somebody not related to you. No, it doesn't have to be somebody in your family. Just a person from the culture that is your favorite when it comes to Black History Month.
I got two. First and foremost, Philip Randolph, Asa Philip Randolph, who established the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, organized the Black men on the train to not put up with the BS no more. Was instrumental also in organizing and assisted in the March on Washington. And they gave me my man Malcolm Little out of Omaha, Nebraska. Malcolm X is my main man when it comes to Black history. What those two brothers accomplished and being able to organize and uplift and have a game plan is still a model for success today.
I have two as well, Neely. I saw the video this morning. It reminded me, whoever the brother was at the big brawl in Montgomery, I guess it's been 2 years ago, that swam across that water and got to the other side to throw hands in solidarity with his brothers. Whatever his name is, he is one of my favorites. Neely, it takes a lot of effort to swim across the water, get out of said water, and then throw some hands.
First of all, because of everything that went on in our history in America, slavery is white history. What we accomplished after slavery, that's Black history. And so we were put in situations where we could not learn how to swim. It's not that we don't want to learn how to swim. Historically speaking, you weren't afforded the opportunity to learn how to swim for a lot of different racial institutionalized reasons. So to have this brother be able to swim, jump in the water, swim, get out the water, throw hands, what a trifecta.
All right, and my other would be Lionel Richie. Neely, I have come to realize that the story of my life can be played out in the lyrics of Lionel Richie, and I think this brother, while he is still here, must receive his flowers and be protected at all costs. We saw Beyonce win award in the country music genre this week. Got a lot of people excited, got a lot of people upset. Man, let me tell you, Lionel Richie has been country, he has been soul, he has been pop, and that man sings some of the best songs to whether you're in a good mood, bad mood, your woman left you, you need to leave your woman. Lionel Richie is the man.
HBCU as well, Tuskegee University.
Neely, I'm not feeling like you've been smoking out of the window listening to some Lionel Richie. I didn't feel like that touched your spirit there, man.
Song that he's written, not just the songs that he's performed, he has really changed the music industry across the board. And like I said, Tuskegee University, man, HBCU guy. Tuskegee, Alabama, you got to give it up for him.
Absolutely. Him and Tom Joyner coming out at the same time there in Tuskegee. That had to be a time to be alive on the campus of Tuskegee. What are you looking forward to, Neely? What are some of the big plans for the Pregame Network? I know we got the Super Bowl coming up. Coach Prime Shador will be there. What's some other big things you're working on content-wise?
Content-wise, keeping these new shows that we got coming in line and order. Also, appreciate the work that little Terrace T2, Terrace Harris is doing there, covering strength and conditioning. And before long, it's spring ball, man. College football is year round now. So we got about 9 weeks through March and April to be there covering that. Next thing you know, you're back there for fall camp. It don't stop.
The last time you laid eyes on Travis Hunter, getting bigger, more muscle?
No, I think at this point, putting on 17 pounds they did in Colorado last year, it'll be the NFL to do those extra things with him. I think he's spending some time recovering his body. The last time I saw him, he looked just like he looked, in the bowl game, which was earlier this year, coming off the Heisman Trophy win when he brought the trophy to campus. So it still looked the same. So it's been about 3 weeks since I've seen him. But I imagine, man, just resting and getting ready to put on, for his individual workouts and figuring out which workouts he'll do and not do, because no matter what he does, he's going to be the number one pick in the draft.
All right. You famously found and with his blessings kept his student ID from Jackson State University. Talking about Travis Hunter here. Did you famously find or hold on to any memorabilia from his time in Colorado that you can add to your collection?
I don't have anything other than his signature, which I have on the Jackson State Sports Illustrated. And I was, trying to get Coach Prime, Shador, and Travis to sign it, and I let Travis sign it first, and he signed all the way across the entire magazine. So I said, "Well, that's it for all three. You took up all the room."
Well, you got the Heisman Trophy winner to do it, so that's not too bad.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna stop him. Hey, what are you doing? You write that big. Now that's your cover.
I was wondering one thing, Neely. There's such a great camaraderie and relationship across the different platforms that are embedded there in Colorado. Well Off Media being one of them. With Deion Sanders Jr. What is he going to do when Shador goes to the NFL? Is he going to have to? Is he going to split his time? Is he going to stay in Boulder? Have you talked to him about that?
I have not talked to him about that. So I think first and foremost, it depends on where his brother goes in the draft as far as splitting his time. But knowing the tip of the spear, the way I know tip of the spear, and that being Deion Sanders, Bucky's going to be in Boulder. Like I don't think that's just totally his call.
The tip of the spear has spoken. You can watch your brother on the Red Zone. I need you here in Boulder. Hey, Atlanta's trying, Neely. We are not out of it yet. I think we have officially divorced all but the paperwork with one quarterback. We've been known to have a quarterback and draft one. Come on, Atlanta. You can move some assets, man. We can move up the board. We can do it. It would be crazy, but who better? Who better to do something crazy than the Falcons? Speak it into existence.
Yeah, and anything could happen. The Raiders got potential to move up. Yeah, the Raiders got potential to move up right now. You got the Titans at 1, Browns at 2, and New York Giants at 3. I would imagine that the 3 players in whatever order, it's going to be Travis Hunter, it's going to be Shador Sanders, it's going to be Cam Ward out of Miami. So who knows? I think that if you're sitting back there at 5, 6, 7, or 8, you got to get into the top 4, to have a chance.
What about this Tom Brady connection with Las Vegas? He has a great relationship with Shador. Do you think he's like, man, I'd really like to have that guy. We need to do something.
I'm absolutely certain that Tom Brady feels that way. However, you got to move up. Like Shador Sanders is not going to be available when your name is called to pick where you're currently picking at. I think they're back there around 8 or something. So what assets do you have? What future draft picks do you want to leverage? You got to move up in the draft if you want them, because he won't be there after 4, after 5 for sure. He's going to be, in those top 4 picks.
All right, it's coming up soon. Who are you rooting for? Well, like, what would, in Neely's world, just Neely's world, you're like, I'm going to be watching Shador every Sunday next year. Who do you want to see him slinging the ball for that would suit you as a fan realistically where he could go?
Well, it wouldn't suit me as a fan because I'm a Dallas Cowboy and this team is in the NFC East. But I love what Shador Sanders brings to the table as it relates to being in New York City. New York is the capital of the world. It is the marketing and advertising capital of the world. There's nothing but a constant spotlight. There's community stuff to do. There's business stuff to do. And I think if there's any player in this draft that is suited to be successful in a market like New York City, it would be Shiloh Sanders. He's grown up around cameras. He knows how to carry himself. He can speak for you at the Children's Hospital, and he can speak for you at a press conference after a win, after a loss. He knows how to lead a team. He knows how to go through bumps and bruises without blaming others. All those things go along with when you're playing for a team that's picking in the top five. And if I look at those markets in the top five teams, there's nothing like being in the Big Apple in New York City. So even though I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan and I would have to see Shedeur 2 times a year at least, not counting the playoffs, I would love to see him in New York City.
How would you go about watching that game? You're a diehard Cowboys fan. Here's a guy that, you know, I'm just going to say he'd be your favorite player in the NFL, one of your new favorite players in the NFL. I'm just going to put those words in your mouth. How would you watch that game, Neely?
Oh, I want him to have 500 yards and lose. It's okay. You can lose by 3 points. Yeah, you can be individually successful and have a team loss.
Look, I know Coach Prime would be at the game. I would love to see the two of you sitting side by side watching that game, New York and Dallas. And I would just love to be a fly on the wall watching you two watch that game.
It could happen. We'll see what goes down in the draft, man. And you know, right now they're picking at 3, and Shedeur could very well be there at third slot. Just as happy if Travis should go to Nashville. I think that market there, even though Nashville is an up-and-coming metropolitan area, it is still Nashville, Tennessee is still Tennessee, more of a laid-back style compared to New York. And I think that kind of atmosphere is right up, you know, Travis Hunter's personal quality of life and how he carries himself.
All right, before we get out of here, Verlene Harry has a question. Neely, she wants to talk about the 2 new quarterbacks at Colorado. She wants to hear. Now, I have gotten gender wrong. I think this is Verlene. Let me click on it. All right, I think it's Miss Verlene. If I'm wrong, please tell me. Neely, your insight on 2 quarterbacks.
I'm looking forward to the competition. You know, you got the quarterback out of Liberty who's bringing a lot of experience to the table, and you haven't played college football until you play college football. And so to have a true freshman out of Georgia, Juju, I mean, who broke every record there in high school, but it was still high school ball, and he's got to get adjusted to playing at a faster pace, you know, in college ball. I can't wait to see, you know, the 2 ends of this tape measure, the experienced collegiate quarterback versus the true freshman who gets this battle. I think only the team is going to benefit for who emerges. You know, because I believe experience matters, I would have to give the nod to the quarterback out of Liberty and what he brings to the table. But you better believe that the true freshman is not conceding anything. And this spring ball, and particularly first part of August camp, is going to be a nice position battle for starting quarterback in Colorado. I think everybody should get ready to look for that.
All right, it'll be one of the most watched games, as always, in the spring, Colorado, and fans across the world will be crazy for the Buffaloes once again. Neely, this Crackling is calling my name. I've just been using it as a prop as we've been talking for almost an hour here. It's time to dive in, Neely. I actually see the first piece that I want to eat. It appears to be the biggest piece, and I'm ready to dive in, Neely.
Go for it.
And so, with that, do you think, Neely, do you have belief in me that next week I'll actually show up with crackling cornbread in the show, that I'll actually make it?
I don't, but I bet you're going to show up with some hot sauce to put on that crackling.
All right, before we go, Neely, I want you to help me out, Neely. My wife hates the way that I eat. She says I eat like a lizard. That I stick my tongue out first to grab my food, and I bring it in like some sort of reptilian frog or something like that. And I have no defense. She like destroys me every time. It's so bad that I'll go to other parts of the house to eat because she critiques my eating. So Neely, I'm gonna down a few pieces of crackling here. Just let me know, do I eat like a reptile or not? What do you think? Is it disgusting the way that I eat? Does it look normal to you?
Yeah, I can see some iguana there. No, I can see some iguana there, but I also can see that y'all got 3 kids, so it don't make that much of a damn difference. At some point, she ain't complaining.
I thought you might have been on my side a little bit, Neely. You see some iguana-like characteristics, you're saying. I think it's just something about the way country people eat, man. I don't know.
Yeah, but I also see 3 kids too. So.
Well, they're getting old. They're getting up there. Well, let me stop while I'm ahead. All right. It's been an episode. We'll try to have some more delicacy. Have you been surviving without Chef? You've been in Jackson for a while. You haven't been eating lamb chops and lobster mac, or maybe you have, but it hasn't just been right in front of you.
Yeah, I'm finna say, Todd, hold on now. I don't need nobody help to eat. Like, I ain't missed no damn meals. So.
I'm glad you worked that in. It's been a while.
Ain't nobody over here like, oh, what is we gonna do? Like, oh, I've been eating.
It's been a while since we worked in. Neely ain't missed no meals. Oh gosh. All right. All right. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Another Thursday afternoon, Tolly and Neely here on the Pregame Network. Next week, I guess we'll talk about the Super Bowl, man. Let's get your prediction before we get out of here. Well, how do you think the game will go down on Sunday?
Because I don't want to hear Simone Stanley mouth no more. I got to go with Kansas City. Let's go KC. Eagles go down in defeat.
Don't be afraid of Simone. Simone just runs her mouth about the Eagles all the time, man. Don't worry about Simone.
All the time.
Don't worry about Simone. Hopefully,
all the time.
Hopefully, it'll be a good game.
I'm not worried about it because that's why I'm pulling for the lose.
I like Josh Williams. He graduated from Fayetteville State, CIAA school there in North Carolina. So he's my guy. I'll be rolling with KC, I guess. All right, man. Neely, enjoy your week, brother. Always good to catch up with you, man. Don't hurt yourself down in New Orleans this weekend. Lot of good eats down there. Lot of good eats.
Yes, sir.
He's like, look, I'm ready to go right now. All right, it's the Pregame Network. It is Tolly. It is Neely.
Crackling.
We will see you guys next time around.